Anybody else having deja vu?
I think it's going to be this way for a while.
Yeah.
Brian, can you talk like you're talking in Zoom, please? Unmute your little mic there. Yeah.
Testing microphone check 1 2 check 1 2.
Good. Loud and clear. Can you put your title screen back on again?
Is that a yes? Okay. I'd like to call to order the Monday, January 3rd meeting of the City of Monona City Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Goforth.
Present.
Alder Groupie.
Present. Welcome, Aline.
Thank you. Alder Moore.
Here?
Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder Kerr.
Here.
Alder Thomas.
Here.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of December 20th?
I'll move to approve. I'll second.
Any comments or additions? Okay. I did have one thing, and hang on a minute here. I know I'm having some issues with my computer screen. On page 3, under Kurt Stutz's appearance, it says he appeared and spoke in favor of a one-way street from Owen Road to Winnequa Road. I think, wasn't that Owen to Maywood? So, Lynn, if you'd like to change that. Anything else? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Moving on to appearances, I have a proclamation to read for Martin Luther King Day. On January 17th, 2022, whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15th, 1929, in Atlanta, Georgia, and became the chief organizer of the Civil Rights Movement by leading peaceful, nonviolent protests throughout the American South. And whereas in 1963, during the March on Washington, 250,000 people gathered outside the Lincoln Memorial to hear Dr. King's I Have a Dream address. And whereas, due in large part due to Dr. King's efforts, the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits racial discrimination and segregation in employment, education, and public facilities, was adopted in 1964. Dr. King received the Nobel Peace Prize later that year. Whereas Dr. King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee on April 4th, 1968, and whereas on November 2nd, 1983, President Ronald Reagan signed legislation making the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. a legal public holiday to be observed on the third Monday of every January, and whereas President Bill Clinton signed the King Holiday and Service Act on August 23, 1994, which designated the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday as a day of community service, interracial cooperation, and youth anti-violence initiatives. And now, therefore, I, Mary Kay O'Connor, Mayor of Monona, Wisconsin, in collaboration with the Monona City Council, do hereby acknowledge Martin Luther King Jr. Day on January 17, 2022, and encourage the residents of the city of Monona during the COVID-19 pandemic to participate in the Martin Luther King Day Jr.'s Day of Service by attending a virtual event or observance on this day. Signed in the city of Monona, Dane County, Wisconsin, this third day of January 2022, Mary Kay O'Connor, Mayor. Okay, and I think we do have one form submitted to make an appearance, Sally Buffett.
Madam Mayor, we have 2 individuals that have registered for appearances. Sally Buffett has submitted a request for appearance, and Alder Christy Goforth has also submitted an appearance request.
Oh, okay. Sally, is she here or? And don't see her on the screen. Have you heard
I
anything?
do
from her?
not see her in the participants list at this moment.
I think she actually wanted to be moved till next meeting.
The next meeting?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right, thank you. Okay, Alder Goforth.
All right, thank you. First, I'd like to start by wishing everyone a happy new year. The new year gives us an opportunity to reflect and set new goals for ourselves in the upcoming year. This week, we'll be kicking off a new campaign season in Monona. So I thought it would be timely to share a few things that the public didn't see during last year's campaign. 3 new leaders stepped up to seek positions as public servants on this body, as you know. Those of us who were seeking a seat at the table were met with hostility, racist rhetoric, called the outsiders. We faced relentless cyberbullying, threats of violence, and even one death threat. Now, these actions were not from renegades in our community. They were from community leaders who were serving on city boards and commissions and still serve today. My children have faced bullying by other kids at Winnequa School because a city staffer told his child that my kids are bad people, and his child has spread this news around the school. Now, this is clearly despicable behavior, and this is what the public didn't see during last year's campaign. So I challenge those who created this hostile environment for new candidates who stepped up with the desire to serve and make this community better for all, to lead by example. While we may disagree on how to design a street or who should fund the V-cycles, we are all still humans, we are neighbors, and we are all dedicated to seeing that Monona is a great place to live. So let's run our campaigns with integrity, honesty, and respect. Our children are watching and listening. And to the voters, I challenge you to please become informed voters. Reach out to the candidates, ask to meet, ask for their views on issues. Don't just listen to the rumors and lies that will circulate. You owe it to yourselves to be informed, and we need an informed electorate. It seems that some think that one needs an invitation to sit at this table as a council member, but that is just not how democracy works. Democracy means that anyone who wants to can serve. Anyone who campaigns diligently and wins gets a seat at this table. Now, I was not invited, but I did bring my own chair. I'm a big believer in that. I invited myself to this table. And that is allowed. It doesn't warrant threats, hostility, exclusivity, racism, and lies being spread throughout the community. So please, let's set a higher bar for ourselves in 2022. Let's be proud of our actions and set good examples for our future leaders, because we truly are all in this together. And thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, there is no public hearing, there is no consent agenda, there are no under council action items, there is no unfinished business. Under new business, item 2A, consideration of ordinance 1-22-746, amending section 335-8 of the Code of Ordinances prohibiting noise disturbing the peace, put forth by the Public Safety Committee. And Chief, are you going to introduce this?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Happy New Year all. Good seeing you. So this has been sort of a work in progress since July. Don't forget I started in June. So it's one of my first big projects. I identified this as a need, as well as I think many of you, and I heard from the members of the public as well regards to changing the noise ordinance. I can have to give a lot of thanks to our city attorney, Bill Cole, in the
Sorry, Chief, you keep
you'll
freezing.
see in the proposal. Can you hear and see me now?
Yep.
Okay, as you can see, I'm at work. So
I think it'd be
All
okay.
I'll put in another quarter. Maybe that'll. Okay. Please wave your hand again, Mayor. I'm sorry if that happens. Let me just say the city attorney helped add some legal polish to some outdated language. Oh,
Maybe if you turn your video off, that might help the streaming, just for the moment.
All right. I always appreciate all the waves too. Maybe we can keep that going all night. Okay. So Bill Cole assisted in doing some legal polish to some outdated language in the policy, so that you'll see some of that change reflected in that. What the changes also do is it authorizes our city clerk to issue residential permits, noise permits for residents. So non-commercial permits can be issued directly by our city clerk's office. Commercial permits go to public safety, or if somebody is not able to submit their application due to a valid reason or a cancellation of a public safety committee meeting, for example, they can go directly to the city administrator for review and authorization under those special circumstances. What that affords is an ability for the public to potentially weigh in and either express any kind of concern or give support for any commercial noise amplification permit application. And the last thing it does in the policy, in the ordinance change, is that it adds language regulating light motor vehicle noise. And that last process and additions were due to some public input that the police department and the public safety committee received from members of the public. That's a quick and brief overview that was originally presented to the PSC, discussed, made some edits, several drafts in August, and then brought back to the Public Safety Committee in November, and this is the final work product.
Questions? Alderwood?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little concerned about the commercial permits having to go to the Public Safety Committee. It's something maybe we need to discuss, but because right now I think the city clerk can approve them, but at the License Review Committee, we're often made aware of noise issues associated with bars and restaurants that have liquor licenses. So, you know, the LRC sort of already has some familiarity with these issues. And then related to that, I see that it limits the number of permits or days to 45. And I guess I'm thinking specifically of the breakwater, whether they do, I don't know how many they do a year, but I think it's entirely possible, and that's probably pretty close to the number of days they pull permits for. I'm not sure. I guess we could check that. So otherwise, I think this is long needed overhaul of this ordinance.
Alder Thomas?
Yeah, a couple of things, Doug. And I wasn't at the meeting when the committee finally approved this. Nancy ran the meeting, but a couple of comments. I think that the safety committee, plan commission sometimes also gets involved when people, I know that they've set limits on some of the beer gardens as well. So I think that when there are complicated things like, it's real simple if somebody wants it for a 2-day neighborhood picnic or a 1-day neighborhood picnic, but it's a totally different thing when we come to places like the like breakwater, and I think that needs input or recommendation from the License Review Committee. Any place that, and maybe we amend it so that any establishment that has an alcohol license should comment, review, and make a recommendation, because you also have the leverage to do this. So I think that makes a great deal of sense to include their input and their recommendation. But And I don't know how we do that in an expeditious manner, but I think that you're right, that we can't overlook the recommendation coming from license review because it's part of the overall behavior of the licensing of the establishment.
Well, license review does meet, the second Tuesday of the month, so we could, I don't know if we were going to have a meeting otherwise, but we could certainly meet to discuss this proposed ordinance.
And the clerk would get the clerk gets the review and also staff's license review, so could take it to license review for a recommendation before it comes to public safety. I think, does that make sense to people?
Alder Moore?
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering, I mean, it makes sense on the one hand. On the other hand, I don't want to be overly onerous to our business owners that are trying to conduct business. And in terms of, how far in advance they'd have to book in order to jump through several different committees. So I'm wondering if those of you that have been handling this more often have a sense of how far in advance you typically get these requests and whether conceivably a whole month ahead of time, is enough. Because I'm just thinking that with booking bands or whatever, sometimes things come up on a relatively quickly, on a pretty quick calendar.
Alder Wood?
Yeah, the requests don't necessarily come in with nearly that much lead time, although I think what Breakwater in particular has settled on is the permits have been very cheap. They're like $10, although I was thinking we might have raised that in the budget, but I'm not sure. Anyway, what they've done is instead we're going to have music like Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, maybe Sunday, and they just pull a permit like for the entire season. But yeah, I think it ought to be one or the other. I think it's kind of, it's not that complicated. I don't think we've had that many issues with sound. Well, I know we did have complaints last summer about it, but just to be clear, right now the license review committee we don't approve or recommend anything on the sound, the permits. That's the clerk and the chief of police, I think, actually issues those permits.
Alder Thomas? I'm sorry, Doug, were you done?
No, yeah, go ahead.
I think that there is a fine line to be walked here, and I've watched it. I sat on Plan Commission when Breakwater came back before them because when they wanted to put music up above, we put limitations on them. And the people, we are balancing the need for the business community against the inconvenience for some of the neighbors. And I think that, they have to know in advance when they're applying for a license, when they have to apply for it. And if they know that this is the process and this is when you have to do it, I think public scrutiny on something that affects so many people is not an unreasonable thing. I think how we handle it speaks well for that we give a thorough review and we make reasonable requests of the people in terms of time and other things. But this can get very complicated, and the neighbors, when it comes, for example, from Breakwater or when it comes from anything else, that noise carries a very long way and affects a lot of our community. And when we give them the right to do that, which is reasonable for them to stay in business, I think that following some rules is not unreasonable if they're sensible and within the public arena. So I don't care that it goes about, but I don't think that when there are lots of things that sometimes require two committee reports. There are things that go through public safety and public works when it comes to street stuff. There are other kinds of things that go through plan commission and public works. And if you make it clear to people what the rules are, so they're not caught off guard, and I don't think that's unreasonable. So that's just my thought on it, but.
Alder Moore.
Yeah, Chief, I would very much appreciate, since it was not part of the original motion and not something that was discussed at public safety, if you could weigh in, and what do you think about that extra step?
I think that's good. I think that what was discussed here is sort of the conundrum that I was in, and I'm currently in, and I'm trying to sort of offer an opportunity for more public input. And so if the decision is for license committees to have to go to the license review in addition to public safety, I think that's fine. My only concern with that is what was, I think, inferred earlier, is that sometimes we're getting these applications. It has since dwindled, but we were getting these applications 4 or 5 days prior to when they were asking for them to be enacted or authorized. And what I have asked the businesses is to adjust their business planning model, knowing that me as chief, I was not comfortable with that I would need more time in case there were any sort of last minute concerns that arose. And I would need to adjust on my end as a police department. But I think that the same could be said about, if this goes to committee, that there will be some good, healthy discussions about particular businesses utilizing all of their 45 days that's allotted, how often those days are consecutive to one another, for example. One of the things that was brought up as a concern to me was, we are in, the term was used is that we're establishing an entertainment district in Monona. And a resident who lives nearby says, when they purchased their home, that was not the case. And now that they're, benefiting from a great venue not too far from them, there are some quality of life concerns that they're experiencing, they and their family are experiencing. And the concern was that, where could they voice their issue with this? And then there be sort of public debate and good consideration and then a vote. And so be it public safety or LRC or both, I think that there needs to be at least the space to have these conversations. My only concern with having the two committees is it might be challenging for businesses to get scheduled, and it's challenging right now for them to do that with just having to apply with the clerk and going through the police department. I'm concerned that might be a challenge for our licensed establishments, but if they know well in advance that this is something they have to do, then maybe they'll find a way to do it.
Alder Coor and then Alder Thomas.
I do support the 45 days. I think that's a reasonable amount. If you think about it, summer is essentially like 12 weeks. And so that's a little less than 4 days a week for live music. I know we got specific concerns from the neighbors that like Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, they're getting, loud noise, and that's disrupting their work life. And so I think that's putting a limit on it is important. I think that also gives us an opportunity for folks that are going to apply for multiple licenses. Usually, like, for example, Breakwater, I hate to pick on them because, we there are other institutions that do get multiple noise permits, but usually they know ahead of time that they're going to have live music 3 days a week during the summer. And so in May, that comes to two committees prior to issuing the multiple permits. And perhaps we give like a blanket approval for multiple permits, but not specific days, so that they could have some flexibility in terms of which days they end up actually pulling those permits. But the ability to say, it's okay for you to have 45 days of live music in the next 6 months, and then allow them flexibility to pull the permit on the specific days if it has to do with who they're pulling for performances.
Alder Thomas.
Yeah, I have two questions. The timing on it, it says it goes to 9 p.m. What does that do to the festival? Which probably has music till 11.
More like midnight. Chief?
It's something I also raised as a concern, and our city attorney agreed. I think that would have to come to council, I think, for special authorization, because that's outside of the permit. Or I think that if it's deemed as a city cooperative event, then there is no need for a permit.
Do they get a permit now, Chief? Do you know?
I don't issue a noise permit for them, and I don't know if my predecessor ever had.
Alder Groupie.
Perhaps I misread it, but I thought there was specific language in the ordinance about special exceptions for special events, like a separate application for a special event that would require amplification outside of the 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. hours. So I think that's already accommodated for in the updated language.
The concern is that I'm not sure where we are with the special event permitting change. I think that's something that now Aline BU is working on, and something that Joan was very much trying to get done prior to leaving.
Yeah, it's something that we're working on in tandem right now.
So I'm reading here, it says special amplification permits may be issued by the city administrator for city-sponsored events. The permit shall indicate the special time frame for amplification authorized under the special permit. Anyone else? Chief, this is related, but not anything to do with music, but I'm just curious. We have a neighbor who several times last summer ran a leaf blower for like 3 hours straight on different evenings. Does this cover that at all? I mean, several people met. It's really annoying. I don't mind it once in a while, but really, 3 hours straight is an awful lot. Is that?
Yeah, Mayor, unreasonable noise is unreasonable noise. However, I can tell you that I think we ought to use some caution with that. There's long discussions today, or there will be, about a lawnmower that the city is going to purchase. We've had similar concerns about lawnmower noise, et cetera, on residential properties or adjacent properties. So it gets a little tricky. What's reasonable is the time of day, to your point of how long it's been going on, how loud is it? Does it create sort of a quality of life issues? What this ordinance allows for us to do, and Attorney Cole, who's not here, but he did mention this in public safety and to me directly, is that the language currently allowed in this ordinance gives the police department the chance to create the picture of this totality of the circumstances, and that allows us to define what is sort of reasonable and what is unreasonable based on sort of our training and experience. So, Mayor, to answer your question is, it depends. If we get there and we are like, yeah, you know what, that is pretty loud. There's indication that this has been going on for 3 hours. It is now late in the night on a weekday. That may be deemed unreasonable.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Alder, go for it.
I was curious about with the light motor vehicles. I know you can't be everywhere in the city at all times. What your thoughts are, or what you're thinking about enforcement with that? I'm thinking about how sometimes it seems like our systems are complaint driven, and if someone hears or sees a vehicle ripping down Monona Drive, it's clearly too loud, should they get a plate number and call you? Would you send a letter? What would be your strategy with dealing with that, or what would you recommend for people that want to try to help mitigate these noise issues?
Yeah, similar to repeat speeders, or we do have residents who call and concerned speeder driving down their block at this time of day. That information is helpful so that we can be proactive in trying to sort of catch the person in the act. But the reason we need to catch the person in the act is because our standard is probable cause for us to effect a stop or to issue a citation. So we need that proof, and it needs to be something that is new, it's fresh, and it's something that we can testify in court to that articulates that level of probable cause. So I'm okay with folks calling stuff in. However, I'm also I'm going to reason with you and say it's got to be something where we can do the follow-up on. If you get a plate, if it's going down at 8 o'clock every day down your street, we can do the follow-up, and the follow-up will depend. We can issue a letter, but in my experience, a phone call or a knock on the door goes much further than a letter.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Chief. We will move on to the next item, 2B, consideration of Resolution 22-1-2529, repudiating racist covenants in local property records, put forth by Alder Kerr and myself. Alder Kerr, would you like to take the lead on this?
Sure, thank you. So I first became more educated on this subject in this past summer. I watched a video by a professor at UW-Madison, Kurt Paulson, who did a fantastic presentation about generational wealth gaps between blacks and whites in Wisconsin. And it's on YouTube. I highly recommend if you have some time to Google it and take a look at it. It's fantastic. But I wanted to see if there was something that we could do in Monona to kind of bring some attention to this issue. Based on state law, we can't just blanket remove this language from current property deeds, unfortunately. But what we can do is essentially call attention to it and encourage homeowners, if they're able, to make amendments to their property deeds to remove the language. And so that's what the motivation for the resolution was. And so just a little background. When I did some searching, there are several community or subdivisions within the city of Monona that currently have this language. Winnequa Terrace is one. Another is the one that's in the resolution. My notes here, sorry. Homestead Highlands is the other. I currently live in Sylvan Heights, and Sylvan Estates, and the language was removed from that subdivision's property deeds back in the 50s, but I did include an example of that. So that's kind of where we stand. I'd be happy to take questions.
Alder Moore?
Yeah, thank you for this, Alder Kerr and Mayor. So I understand that we're not able to physically change the deeds ourselves by state law. But when you say that but how far are we able to go, number one, in terms of encouraging individual residents? Like I would guess there's probably some residents that don't even know it's in their deed. Like they probably didn't read the deed that closely. So are we envisioning some sort of an educational campaign or something to make sure that those neighborhoods where we still have a problem that the residents that live there even know that it's a problem and what they can do to change it?
I do think that that's a great idea. I did hear that there is some potential legislation going through the state level that may address some of this. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a copy of the bill at this point. I don't think it's been released. But the state of Minnesota has recently changed their laws, and the city of Minneapolis actually has a form that residents can fill out that would you enter in your address, and then the city takes on the responsibility of making sure that matching it up with the current property deed and looking to see if that language exists within that deed. And then they help you complete a form that is based on the new legislation in the state of Minnesota that complies with that new legislation to allow that language to be amended within your property deed. So that could be coming down the pipe for the state of Wisconsin, but at this point we don't have that currently in this legislation.
But there wouldn't be there to the best of your knowledge, there would certainly we have leeway to communicate with residents and educate residents, encourage them to change it. We just don't have the leeway to go in and change it for them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I think we also don't have control of the deeds that in Wisconsin that's controlled by the county.
Right.
City. So we don't know, we know some deeds that are like that, but we don't know all of them. Is that correct, Brian? You're on mute.
That is correct. Yeah, we do not have any deeds. We don't house the deeds at the city that houses the county, so any changes, amendments would need to be done with the county. So we would be
In terms of
facilitating.
finding out which ones need to even be changed, we don't know that either, correct?
No, although I will say it's my understanding that the county is, because there are other states and municipalities across the country that are taking on the same effort. Dane County is working on setting up a searchable system in their records where homeowners can go and do this type of research and find out what their current deed says for no cost. Because right now, under their current system, you'd have to pay to get a copy of your deed. Clearly, that would be an impediment to many people. So they're trying to put together a free resource where people could search and find out. I'm not sure exactly where that's at in terms of when that'd be ready to be released, but that's something that I know the county's working on.
Okay, thank you. Alder, go for it.
Our DEI committee has talked about this quite a bit, and someone did reach out. I believe it's the county clerk of deeds. Is there a thing? Yes. And someone had a conversation with her about this. And she did verify what Alder Kerr said, is there is some legislation that's supposed to be coming forward in January, and it's mainly being sponsored by the Wisconsin Realtors Association. Apparently it's not that the language can be stricken from your deed, but it will be apparently crossed out, and I'm trying to remember the exact phrase, saying something like not enforceable by law. So it's not a great solution because it will still be there, but it's being pushed through by the Wisconsin Realtors Association, which I think was the organization that put it there in the first place. So that's what we know about that legislation in January. But I think Alder Kerr is coming to the DEI committee on Thursday, so we can certainly update her at that time, provide information on what we gathered.
Anyone else? Alder Groupie.
I also want to thank you, Alder Kerr and Mayor O'Connor, as well as the DEI committee for sort of, getting the ball rolling on this and presenting to us at council tonight. I now live in the Frostwoods neighborhood after moving this year, and I know that it is present in our property covenants, and it's something that it's been crossed out, and we acknowledge as an HOA that, we don't honor that, we don't recognize it as something important. But I do appreciate Attorney Cole's recommendation of, ensuring that everybody knows about this. I know we discussed it our annual HOA meeting earlier this year. But I think it's something that residents would be eager to, make a definitive vote against or participate in somehow. And so I think if there are representatives, like me from this neighborhood where this exists, or other areas in town who are present or watching this right now, I think it would be, easy enough for us to sort of spread the word among those involved in our neighborhoods to try to get more attention to this and make sure that everybody's aware of how they can participate either now or in the future to make sure that this doesn't continue and that we can strike it from the records eventually, hopefully. So.
Alder Corr?
I guess the reason I kind of wanted to put this forward also is not necessarily that this is going to then essentially solve the problem. My hope is that this brings attention to the issue because there's it's part of a larger piece of a puzzle in terms of why there's such a large wealth gap. And it has to do with how generational wealth is acquired. And mainly that's required through home ownership. And structurally speaking, when Dane County was growing, it was within property deeds. Language was in exclusions from FHA loans and with VA loans in terms of blacks were excluded from requiring loans in that manner. And so they were, an entire group of people that were left out of the ability to purchase homes. And this was at the 50s and 60s. And this is a time period where homes were essentially most accessible homes were 2 times your income level. And, now that those exclusions don't exist anymore, people are able to purchase homes where they feel like they want to purchase homes. These covenants are not enforceable at this point due to federal law. But because so much time has passed, now homes are 5 times annual income, and so that gap is structurally there. And so there's a larger issue. And so my hope is that bringing forth this resolution, creates a larger conversation around this issue, and understanding why Monona's makeup looks the way it does. So.
Alder Thomas.
Yeah, just because I get defensive about Frostwoods. It is true that it was in the bylaws of the Frostwoods Association when it was set up. In 1951, the members took a strong stance against it and removed it from the bylaws. So it's not here, and it's not been part of Frostwoods since 1951.
Just to clarify, Kathy, and when we were presented with our materials after moving here, it's still present there. It is stricken from the record, but it is there present for us to see that it was something that was removed previously. So it still exists as something that's circulated that people should be aware of and educated about.
Anyone else? Thank you. Moving on to the next item, 2C, consideration of resolution 22-1-2530, amending the 2022 capital budget amendment for the purchase of a mower in the Parks Department, put forth by the Parks and Recreation Board. Mr. Anderson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This agenda item in your packet, you can see the details of it, but we start to get information for our capital budget. That process starts in April, May, June. We get our quotes for equipment specially. That dollar amount was included and approved in the capital budget. When we went to sign the purchase order estimate, we were informed that that particular brand of mower was not going to be available due to supply chain issues until most likely quarter 3, quarter 4 of 2022, and that they could not honor that existing pricing. They did, however, offer an alternative, which would be a $20,000 more expensive mower, one that we currently have. So we have one of each. One is a cab on it, which has heating, air conditioning, a little more protected from the elements, and that's what is a price increase, and that they have availability with me. So we took that information to the Park and Recreation Board with the recommendation that we would utilize trade-in or auction funding from the existing 6-foot mower to offset the increased cost. I would also offer at Finance and Personnel, I recommended that with both this agenda item and the other agenda item for increase in funding for tree replacement, that we would push off the Fireman's Park bike rack project, that $15,000 to 2023, in order to reduce the amount of increase in the capital budget.
Any questions? Okay, Alder, go for it.
I'm sorry to be late on that. I was curious, I see that he offered a higher, a more expensive option. Did he offer a lower cost option? I mean, 'cause, it's good, it works for him to present a higher option. That helps him out. Just curious if there was a lower cost option presented at all, or did you see anything available?
The request was in the wide area mower, so comparable size. So the issue with our recommendation in the capital budget for this mower was the width of what it could mow. And so those are the only two options in that particular width.
Alder Thomas.
Okay, go for it. Just so you know, when we talked about this at finance and personnel, the issue of if you got a smaller mower, it would take more time and more labor, and you'd have to increase the salary line because it would take more time. Which I was educated to by Jake and others. So it's a balance here, but it's a COVID issue.
Alder, go for it.
Sure, completely understand that. Not that I wanted a smaller mower. I thought maybe there was one with less bells and whistles that might bring the cost down. Down 10,000 versus going up in the opposite direction. I have concerns about our budget. It was really rough this year, and here we are, 3 days into the new year, and we are amending and making more expenditures. And that concerns me.
Alder Court.
I appreciate Director Anderson's move to, postpone the Fairman's Park project to help with the budget. I also am grateful that we have this option to get something, so that we have something. I'm just wondering if with the fact that this is COVID related, if we have any opportunities to use the federal money to kind of offset this. I know that that's more infrastructure, and it may be a stretch.
It is not my understanding that we can use ARPA money to offset costs related to supply chain issues. It's kind of not the intent of the ARPA money.
Great, thanks.
Alder, go for it.
I was going to say, maybe in the spirit of finding other alternatives, funding sources, might it be a possibility for the bike pad and the bike rack to get a sponsorship from a business to cover that, do you think?
I think it's just something we'd entertain in a separate project. We'd just delay it a year and look at those options for 2023.
I appreciate that.
Sure, but in that short of time between now and spring, we'd like a little more time to plan for it.
Alder Moore.
Just one other thought, Jake, which and that is, I know that public from previous budgets that Public Works uses, I think it's John Deere as opposed to Toro, and I know that you guys, because you tended to go, your separate ways in that regard, and I know, in terms of parts and everything, you've described before that it's important for you, obviously, to stick with the same brand. But do you know if there's such a thing as a wide mower in whatever brand Public Works uses? Because we would have the parts and the maintenance, available in-house, so to speak.
Sure, we used to use them and they were not good. That we got away from the John Deere wide area mowers to sub into the Toro. So
Okay.
They're probably having the same issue though. This is worldwide shortage of parts and orders for any equipment, whether it's
Sure.
vehicles or is delayed right now. So I think it's one of if we can get this, my recommendation is we do, because we're not sure what 2022 is going to look like and how far those delays are going to get pushed out. And we can anticipate that pricing is going to be going up for everything regardless. So while it's $20,000 today, increase, it may end up only being, you know, a $5,000 increase by when all is said and done to get, you know, what we wanted to originally. That same mower that was 78 may cost 82, 85. We don't know, you know, what that's going to cost when that pricing becomes available.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. We'll move on to item 2D, consideration of resolution 22-1-2531, amending the 2022 capital budget for parks tree removals and replacements, also put forth by the Parks and Recreation Board. Now, this was voted out of Finance and Personnel with an amendment. So I guess, Aline, do you have somebody want to explain what the amendment was? Doug, would you like to?
Sure. Yeah, that was what I think Kathy already, or Jake already referenced, that we recommended approving it and at the same time delaying the bike rack project till 2023.
And the bike rack was 15, so 10 of that would go to the trees, and you thought the other 5 could go towards the lawnmower. Was that the?
Right.
And we'll have that for the final version here, but. Jake, did you have anything else to say about that? Did you want to?
No, other than that was, you know, the capital budget was approved before we got notification that we were not awarded the grant. Otherwise, we would have updated our capital budget ask, you know, with that information. Because the tree replacement is an important project of the department, and we've got some priority trees that have to be removed that are generally too big for city staff to do.
Alder Thomas.
Okay, do we have any idea how much you expect on a trade-in on the mower that you're gonna trade in?
Most likely this one will go to auction given the age of it. Probably won't have as much value on trade-in. I would say in that neighborhood of $4,000 to $7,000. Sometimes auctions go a little crazy. And
Okay, so if we get 7,000 trade-in, that takes us, we're about 3,000 off budget wise. That makes sense?
Yeah, that'd be correct, Alder Thomas.
So it's going to be tricky to see how much we borrow, Brian, or Mark, but you know, if you take in the trade-in and you take the $5,000, we can reduce the amount that we have to increase, or we're not going to borrow more, but that we have to take out of the fund balance, the capital fund balance, which will make, I think, all of us happy.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Moving on, item 2E, consideration of resolution 22-1-2532, allocation of American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds for police and fire departments policy updates, put forth by the city administrator, Fire Chief McMullen, and Police Chief Cheney Austin. Chief McMullen, which one of you would like to take this one?
I can start with this one and have Chief Cheney Austin follow, since he was kind enough to take on the finance meeting earlier. So, good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. Good to see everybody smiling. Welcome, Aline. Good to see you. So this has been a project that we've been working on since Chief Cheney Austin came on board. Policies, procedures, updates. What I found when I started is many of our policies and procedures are well out of date, and we're actually missing a lot of current policies and procedures that we should have, especially on the legal side. And as with finance and personnel, I'll be blunt and say I simply don't have the time to create the number of policies and procedures that we need that we don't currently have. So we were exploring options for doing a consolidated fire and police policy procedure update project, and in doing the research, we've been working together with Lexipol to put together a package for creation, updating, providing training to our staff on policies and procedures, and making sure they're all in a single clearinghouse for both the public and for our staff to be able to access. So we originally were looking at a 5-year plan and looking at the overall cost. We reduced that to an onboarding project and then 2 years of service, keeping the policies and procedures updated. The bulk of the policies and procedures probably fall more on the police side than the fire side. They have far more standing orders and general procedures than we do as a rule. But the overall project cost came, I think, to $89,000, just a little bit over. And in doing some further investigative work, we determined that ARPA funding was a good fit for this. We have other communities that have done this successfully. So we took it to the city administrator, and now you have it in front of you as a project for us to get started on over the next 2 years.
Chief Cheney Austin, did you want to add anything?
Yes, thank you. Chief McClellan covered basically all of it. I'll just add my 2 cents and say I think all of you have heard me mention the need for this and needing to consolidate our policies, general orders, procedures, not only so that our staff has a good working knowledge and it's easily accessible to them, but also the general public. You know, I've in my 6 months here, I have received that feedback that, you know, it's been challenging to identify, it's been challenging to find, it's been challenging to discern what is general order, what is policy. And to be honest, I'm the chief of police here. It's hard for me to try to sort of find everything and determine why something is in general order versus operating procedure. And Lexipol agrees. Obviously, they're in the business. This is what they do, but they also service about 8,000 other agencies plus. They are a partner of CIVMIC, so our insurance provider. So CIVMIC very much supports contracting with this organization. And I've, of course, asked around. And those who I've talked to that currently utilize Lexipol services rave about their product and what they're able to provide. What I can say, at least from the PD side of things, too, is Lexipol has a team, a legal team, a large legal team. And what they also do for us and for my benefit is that they look into Wisconsin law, case law, any newly implemented statutes, and they apply it to policy, Wisconsin-specific policy. And they make sure we're updated, they make sure we're in compliance, and they cater to that, and they cater to language, or they cater to our specific community needs when they suggest an implementation of a policy. That's something that we so desperately need, and that's something that I think this community expects in their police department.
Any questions? Alder Thomas, then Alder Moore.
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment that thank the 2 chiefs for taking the lead and getting this done. I think we all know we have a great police and fire department, but they, like all of us, need direction and training and policies, and we were wanting for that, and it will only help some good departments become even better. So the community needs it, and the departments need it. So thanks for taking care of this.
Alder Moore.
Yeah, I was just to echo what Alder Thomas was saying. I frankly, as the new public safety committee person several years ago, after the June 2nd incident, I was kind of blown away, frankly, by the shape that the policies and orders were in, and you know, Chief Estrango was the first one to say that it was always something he wanted to get to, but never had time. And so I really appreciate these guys coming forward, and I think the operative words are a desperate need, and thank God that we have the funds that we can apply here. So I wholeheartedly support this. The second thing is, I'm wondering, since it is funds that are likely to disappear sooner rather than later, does it make sense to extend the updates more than 2 years? Just from the standpoint of, I'd just be afraid that we get them all nice and pretty and we'd be able to update for a couple of years and then we get behind the 8 ball.
Mr. Gatto, were you going to say something about that?
Yeah, I've had a conversation with the chiefs about this. I understand kind of desire to lock this in as long as possible. My only concern with extending it out additional years beyond 2 is that we don't know what other needs we might have for the ARPA money, so I hesitate at this particular moment in time to put a large chunk of our year 1 dollars to this one project. It's not to say we couldn't revisit this conversation in 6 months to a year and work with FlexiPool to add on additional years to this original 2-year contract. But since so much is unknown about ARPA, I'm just hesitant to recommend that we allocate that much to it.
Alder Goforth, then Alder Kur.
Thank you. I wanted to reiterate what Alders Moore and Thomas said, and after I know I sifted through all the policies last summer as well, and they are voluminous, and I would think it probably is a full-time job just sorting those out, making sure they're updated, and staying on top of it. So I think this seems like a great fit for ARPA funding. I also was going to ask about extending the 2-year. Just on that, just out of curiosity, I respect your thoughts on maintaining at 2 years. If multiple years are purchased, is there a price break? Is that part of their pricing strategy, or not necessarily? You know how often you buy 3 years, you get a discount?
Chief, did you?
Yeah, and what was quoted to me and how it was explained to me is that we would be locked in at the price that we were quoted at for that 5 years plan now. And obviously that can change with inflation, et cetera, in future years.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Alder Kur, then Alder Thomas.
I would think that if we got the policies updated and streamlined more significantly than they are now, we could probably go on a maintenance plan for future years and probably be at a lower cost, and maybe do it every other year. Or I think we could revisit that at that time. I don't know if that would be my interest at least.
Alder Thomas.
Yeah, I fully expect that we will continue this going forward. I think we can't afford not to, because lawsuits are a lot more expensive than paying to have the policies updated. But this is the current contract. But I assume that that public safety would recommend that we continue this beyond the 2 years, because policing and the world is changing pretty rapidly, and I don't expect the chiefs to have less work. I expect them to have more. So I think that it'll probably become part of the ongoing budget process going forward, is my guess.
Alder Goforth.
I wanted to mention that the grant finder piece sounds awesome, and that will help us recoup those funds. And really appreciate that wellness module in there too. I think those are just really great assets for the city.
Chief?
Yeah, just to provide clarification, we activated the policy management. Well, this would activate the policy management module, and not necessarily that wellness piece. However, just stay tuned. I have an update on that in my report out later today.
I'll be patient.
It's definitely something we need. Anyone else? Okay, moving on to our final item then, consideration of Resolution 22-1-2533, allocation of American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds for multimedia improvements in the library, put forth by Library Director Claringbowl and City Administrator Gatto. So Will, are you still there? Were you going to address this first? And I see Ryan is on as well.
Yes. I can address. I mean, Ryan, if you want to go talk about your needs and what your goals were, then I can kind of wrap in kind of where I wrapped in the technology to kind of make it maybe a little more functional for more things.
Sure. In a Dane County director meeting, some of the directors mentioned that they were converting their meeting spaces to allow for better hybrid programs to be done by just putting in technology upgrades to their meeting spaces, and they mentioned the company Fearings is who they worked with. So I contacted them. They came in, and the idea is to make the forum room and the meeting and the municipal room at the library put in like directional mics installed, as well as kind of like smart cameras that will locate who is speaking and focus on them. This would be done, at least from the library's perspective, for two different reasons. One is for library programs to be held in those spaces, which they are done, traditionally. However, we have been doing, of course, much more virtual programming during COVID. Well, when we will move to allow for indoor programs sometime in the 21st century, we hope to also then provide these virtually to those that can't come into the building. Since we recognize that the virtual programs work, but some people prefer in person, and with this equipment, we could then easily provide this to people that come to the building and people that maybe want to watch this at home. The second part is that patrons that want to rent those spaces and use those spaces could also take advantage of this technology, whether it's a business that wants to do a training and they have some of the folks there, but then they can also provide it to people at home, as well as the two after theater groups that maybe want to put on either the practices or the performances. They'd be able to utilize that technology. And so from there, also wanted to do the municipal room, because I thought maybe with, the library would like to use that space when it's not being used by the city for programs, and also if it could benefit the city with the committees in any way, shape, or form.
Will, do you want to address what you're planning, and then if anybody has any questions?
Yes, I mean, the easiest one is we are ordering a new projector. Right now, we just have a temporary one up. For a while, you guys know that there was not one up. Usually there is a image behind all of you in the council room, in the municipal room, where Brian's sitting now. There is one behind him. So it's a temporary one that was at the high school that we had, so we just put that up for now. But we do need to replace the projector that went down. So that's part of this proposal, as well as updating our, streaming abilities and user-friendly access in the municipal room. Right now, it's pretty much all manual usage, which is why we're pretty much always there every time there needs to be a presentation or use that room in some nature. So since Fairings was going to come in and kind of make it Zoom-friendly outside of the setup, they still needed to utilize our equipment and utilize our setup. So we talked to them about, well, let's improve the computer connectivity, so when people come in, they can plug in their computer, press a button on a screen, and whatever particular setup they need, that will come up, and they will be able to do their presentation, their Zoom, whatever it is they're hoping to do. That would then lessen our need to be there, making it easier for Ryan and his department to kind of handle that room without always having to email us and work with us to make sure we have everything squared away. It will also, hopefully the hope is that, there've been a couple times for whatever reason the YouTube stream went down halfway through a council meeting. Not sure why that would be. However, the equipment we use, that one piece of gear is older, 5 to 6 years, so we would update that to kind of keep that more stable. And of course, the hope is to just make this a little easier for everyone and anyone to use without having to call us. We still will have to be there anytime somebody wants to go to YouTube with their meeting. So Plan Commission, City Council, if Public Works has any bigger meetings, those types of things, we should be there because we will be integrating our equipment for the YouTube stream.
Any questions? Alder Moore.
Yeah, well, does this mean that Chris Homburg, as closest to the lectern, will have to give up his use of the quote-unquote overhead projector?
No, he will. That'll still be part of the equation for sure, and he can use that as much as he's like, and assuming that that'll probably only happen during Plan Commission, so we'll be there to help if need be.
Okay.
No, nothing will change as far as what is accessible and what is being used. It'll hopefully just be easier to use all of it. I will say they did tell us in the proposal, similar to Jake and the lawnmower, that by the time we order all these things, most of them probably won't come till later in the year, or I should say, March, I think they were hoping for. But also that the prices will probably be more than what's in the proposal due to everything and anything. So I think we should be aware of that whenever we move forward, that the price will be more than what's on the proposal right now.
Alder Goforth and then Alder Thomas.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that I think this is a worthwhile investment. We know COVID is not going to disappear. It's now a way of life, and these variants will continue. So I think having the proper equipment so we can have meetings in efficient ways and save our staff time and just have, I know in Plan Commission, it's been a struggle to have some of those meetings with only the one projector, so I really appreciate you guys bringing this forward. I think it's a worthwhile investment.
Alder Thomas.
In response to Will's comment about the cost increase going up at finance, we talked about it down. Brian, I think, will put in an amendment that says that we can increase it up to 10% over the ask, and Brian could approve that, and anything more than 10%, the council would come back to the council. So we'll try and accommodate any unforeseen or potential increase in costs.
Alder Moore.
Does it make more sense to just take it out of order? I mean, I'm not imagining that any one of us are against this particular investment. It's a wise investment, and if by moving up a few weeks, we can lock in a price. Does that make sense? More sense?
Sure.
Were you going to say something
opinion about that?
Well, will it be helpful to move it if we act on it tonight?
I would assume so. I mean, I guess I can't speak for them and their and where those costs are for them, But I think just in general, getting the project moving, I would assume would get us to where we can give them the green light. They can put the order in, and we might be receiving things 2 to 3 weeks earlier than, or sooner, because we're moving forward as opposed to waiting and keeping that shipment line, whatever it is that's holding it up. Even
when they were here, and I was talking to them in the rooms, and they were talking to me about their projects and the normal timeline versus like the COVID timeline, and that they have a lot of projects stacked up waiting for equipment to come in. So I do think the earlier that this can be approved, so we can get in their list and get that going, the sooner obviously that then they can install the equipment. The longer the delay and is just the further down on the list, and the longer it will take for them to install it, because they do have quite the backlog of projects right now that are like 50%, 80% to finish up. So I know that as soon as things start moving again, or maybe they don't, but as things trickle in, it's just going to take longer and longer and longer for them to either start and complete a new project.
That being the case, I'd move to suspend the rules and take this out of order.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes. Is there a motion to approve this?
So moved.
I'll second.
Move to amend.
Alder, go forth. You had your hand
I
up.
was going to recommend exactly what Alder Moore said to expedite this.
Okay, Alder Thomas.
Move to amend the resolution to, after the piece, add the piece that says, and allow the city administrator to approve any cost overruns up to 10% of the cost of the project.
Second.
Any discussion?
Good idea.
Pardon?
I just said good idea, Alder Thomas.
Doug, you wanted to say something?
No.
Okay.
Doug, you seconded, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor of Kathy's amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
And then any further discussion on the resolution as amended? There's none, then will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Thomas,
Aye.
Alder Goforth,
Aye.
Alder Groupie,
Aye.
Alder Moore,
Aye.
Alder Wood,
Aye.
Alder Coor.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to report from committees, commissions, etc. Does anyone have any updates or discussion on diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts? Alder Goforth, and then City Administrator Gatto.
I just wanted to thank Mayor Connor and Administrator Gatto for allowing the Ho-Chunk flag to fly year-round. I think that is phenomenal. Really appreciate that gesture. And I know the Ho-Chunk Nation appreciates that as well. I also want to congratulate our Chief Cheney Austin for making the Wisconsin's 48 most influential Black leaders in the state list. So congratulations. Huge honor to have you here with us.
Thank you, and Brian?
Just one quick item for the council members that are going to be participating in the Nehemiah's Justified Eager course this upcoming winter, spring. I'm just about done finalizing potential slots for those of you who are participating. So expect an email from me at some point middle of this week with what your time slot's going to be. So just keep an eye out.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alder Moore.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple of things. One is, just a reminder to our community and to all of us that we approved MLK as a staff holiday last year, and I really, really hope that our staff takes that holiday and is not sucked in any way into coming in unless you're obviously scheduled to come in. And the second thing is I just wanted to give a shout out as well to not only the chief for his listing in the 48 most influential, but I also wanted to congratulate the police department as a whole. I feel like December was kind of like Christmas happening over at the police department in terms of hires and improvements with Julie Roberto graduation, Rivera rather, with Sarah getting a promotion, and with the hiring again of Emma Gonzalez, and with the hiring of Emma Dobbs, just represents extraordinary diversity in a department that was, except for Sarah, all guys for a really long time. So I think it's a great step forward.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then we will move on to update and discussion on sustainability efforts. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say? Okay, well then we will move on to committee reports. Guess we will start out with Alder Groupie.
No report.
Alder Coor.
No public works meeting for Wednesday. We will be meeting in February. And I wanted to mention Loudon Library is hosting their annual fundraiser, although unfortunately we won't be loud or in the library. We're going to be virtual again this year. We're partnering with Eat Street, and you can order through Eat Street for delivery January 28th, 29th, or 30th this year. So our normal weekend, but the entire weekend. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We hope that you patronize Monona restaurants, but if not, then any local restaurants will be appreciated. And the library will get 15% from Eat Street for that fundraiser. So the code to use is LOUD22, and there's more information in the library's website about it.
Alder Wood.
No report.
Alder Moore.
The Plan Commission will be meeting this Monday, well, there's numerous things on the agenda. Primary thing on the agenda is further discussion of a phase 1 of a development that's been proposed for the bowling alley post office site. We've had a pre-hearing on that particular development, and as I said, it'll be up before us again on Monday, primarily related to zoning. But if that's of interest, I would encourage residents to tap in and get up to speed on that particular development. And the Sustainability Committee will be meeting on the 13th. And as I'm sure all other meetings will be until the foreseeable future, those will all be virtual. We won't be meeting in person.
Alder Thomas.
No report.
Alder Goforth.
Yes, DEI committee meets this Thursday, January 6th. Landmarks is meeting January 12th at 4:30. As a reminder, we're hoping to get that second opinion on the pagoda and the structural integrity of that. I also just wanted to mention that the development that's proposed at the corner of Dean and Monona Drive, that they had a listening session on December 28th, and that is set to come to Plan Commission on January 24. I know a lot of people in the community are curious about that, so set your calendar for January 24, 7 p.m. for that.
Okay, any staff, library director clearing bowl?
I mentioned it in the report that I had submitted. I would like to just reiterate it, just because I think it, even though it's okay. So the library journal they have these star libraries every year. I think this is the 14th year. Monona Library is on it. It breaks it down by the operating budget, so in tiers. That's your group that you're quote unquote competing against. And then it looks at all your outputs, and that's based off of the annual report that all libraries do and submit to IMLS. So it's based purely on output, and they make a note saying this is not saying libraries that don't make it aren't doing great things, and understand that it's a fraction of the story of what libraries do for their communities. Regardless of all that, Monona Library is on there. I do think it's a testament to the staff here and to the community that supports the library, to the work that you all do, and especially the library board for what they do, that we managed to, our library made the list, and not the only Wisconsin library, Madison Public Library made it as well. Other Wisconsin libraries did, and just to show that the library is being used, it's embraced by the community. And again, I think it speaks often to, we have a lot of books, but we have a smaller collection compared to other libraries. We have fewer computers. Honestly, the things that makes us unique, not only the Monona community, but is also the staff here, that I have patrons come in and say how much they love the staff, and they come here specifically for the staff. So I think it's a nice little honoring of what the staff has done here for all these years. And I really appreciate them being recognized for the work that they do.
Right, congratulations. Will, did you have anything you wanted to say?
I do not. Congratulations, Ryan, and really nice to see you in these meetings.
Chief McMullen.
I have a really brief report. You'll notice there was no monthly report in this packet due to the end of the month coming so quickly. I am working on an annual report for the fire department, which will be pushed out to the city council for your review to kind of highlight what we do on an annual basis, not just on a monthly basis. We do have 12 new volunteers that have started over the last month. And speaking about diversity and equity and inclusivity, 5 of them are women. And half of the new folks are City of Monona residents as well. So we've got quite a new crop of people coming in. They're going to be taking their entry-level class at the fire department starting in a couple weeks. So everything will be done in the city here. The last thing I'm going to say tonight is a thank you to the police department and to our streets department. I don't think streets gets enough recognition for helping us get where we need to go. When the weather's bad, the things we rely on to get our trucks where we need to go are the streets department. They do a fabulous job for us. And the police department, they're always there. So we just touched a hair under 1,800 calls this year for the fire and EMS department, which is a large call volume for our police department as well, because again, they come to all of them along with all the other stuff they do. So that'll be highlighted in the annual report. So I'm going to be quiet and say, again, Aline, it's good to see you in these meetings. You're still smiling, which is great. So, and I hope you all have a great night.
Thank you. Chief Cheney Austin.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Yes, welcome, Aline, and shout out to the library. Fabulous job. So keep it up and let us know what we can do to help. As Jerry mentioned, we're all about team public safety. I think you all know Jerry and I work well together when we're thinking about how best we can provide high quality public safety to our residents or persons passing through, persons dining here, persons shopping here, or simply walking on their sidewalk or non-sidewalk. I know it's a touchy subject. I just want to just briefly thank Alder Goldforth and others who acknowledge it was such a privilege to me to be on a great list of very prominent Black women and men in Wisconsin, and many of those persons I know personally and very much look up to them. So it was quite an honor and really cool. We're all about, I come born and raised from a single brown woman. And so I'm all about making sure I represent Mama's standards. And Jerry and I are on the same page there. And so we will continue to recruit, hire, promote as many women as we can. I don't think that's, we should even bat an eye at that. It's just something that Jerry and I live and breathe by. But I'm really excited that we're finally getting more representation here at Monona. Women, as we all know, are quite underrepresented, certainly underpaid, and we need to make sure that we step to the plate, especially as men, that we step to the plate. All right, so Alder Moore, thank you for stealing some of my thunder with some of our promotions and hires, but you said it all, so thank you for that. I just want to update the committee and the public. I am starting to round out our list of members for this Chiefs Roundtable group, sort of an advisory group that I've talked about for some time. Just getting that going. We've got about 10 or so members that have signed up and have agreed to take part. It's a diverse group of membership, diverse background, experiences. I'm looking to organize a first meeting in the next month or so. We're going to have 4 meetings per year. The whole point of this roundtable group, if you're not familiar, is I'm looking to get thoughts, suggestions, insights on all things public safety as it relates to community engagement, training, best practices, current events, and more. And so I'm very hopeful that this group of diverse members will be able to help support me in our mission here at the police department. I need one thing from you all and those listening. We're lacking a young person And so if somebody knows a teenager, preferably somebody who's able to take part in some pretty complex conversations and whose parent or guardian supports them in doing so, please have the parent or the young person reach out to me directly, and we'll talk about it. So I would love a young person to be represented in that roundtable discussion. We'll meet 4 times a year. It'll be virtually, and the meetings will last, I anticipate, an hour and a half. So any questions, just feel free to reach out to me. Other updates with the police department, we've started our peer support program this year. Our peer support officer is going to be teamed up with the fire department. We've sat down, with our new chaplain, with the EAP, and so we're working on ways in which that peer support officer can be utilized better so that we can make sure our staff are fit, mentally fit, and are ready to take on the next challenge. And so peer support program is up and running, and we will make sure that the officer who's been unanimously nominated and supported by his peers is fully equipped to take on that challenge. And then lastly, wellness days. I apologize, Council. I did not wait for your permission. I have went ahead and have instituted a wellness day for each staff member here at the police department. What that includes is a 1-hour EAP session in which there'll be a discussion or an assessment to evaluate the staff members' wellness. This was worked out with Leah. It was worked out with our EAP provider, and there's plenty of room to do that. We are frankly underutilizing our EAP resources that we pay good money for, and our public safety personnel, particularly from what I see from police and dispatch, can certainly use the boost and encouragement from their chief to say that it's okay to talk to the professionals about things we see and experience every day. I need everyone here to be physically fit and mentally fit so that we can provide better service to all of you. And so by encouraging wellness days for all of our staff and encouraging the 1-hour EAP session, my hope is that staff will walk away with more tools on their belt, so to speak, in which to be better people and to be better dispatchers and be better cops. The balance of their day, if you're curious where the other hours are going to be doing, it's whatever wellness activity has been deemed good for them as a person. I don't care if it's fishing with your kid. I don't care if it's getting on the treadmill, which I need to do more, by the way. Whatever has been identified as a good, healthy, and wellness activity for our staff is what I will wholeheartedly support. Now, I'm encouraging opting in on this wellness activity and this wellness day. I've not yet mandated that. I don't think that I can without the administrator of this council saying that I can. But I'm going to bet that we're going to get some high level of participation with folks who are wanting to partake in their day of wellness. So that was my spoiler, Alder Moore, in what I was wanting to mention with regards to how we're supporting our staff. That's not necessarily through Lexipol, but it's something that we already pay for through our EAP provider and something that they're able and willing to do. And I know Joan made fun of me. I listened in during the last council meeting. I know she poked fun at me a little bit for being brief in my report out, but I will make mention that hers lasted just as long as my brief report out. So, all right, and that's all I have. Thank you all. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Finally, City Administrator Gatto.
Thank you. Just two items for everybody. Number one, just as a reminder, our next council meeting will actually be Tuesday, January 18th, because of the relocation for the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. And second, as you can imagine, we're not the only sector in the country that's been impacted by the recent surge of COVID. Every department in the city has had some sort of impact with certain employees testing positive. So we are doing our best to keep people separated, provide barriers and separation amongst employees, following all the various state and county rules and regulations, and sourcing as much testing equipment as possible for our staff. so we can try to avoid having multiple staff members out at the same time. That being said, we will likely bring back to the council at the next meeting on the 18th, probably a revised COVID leave policy, similar to what we had in place last year, so that if an employee does contract COVID, they are granted a certain period of leave time separate from their sick bank, so that they can recover from COVID and have the time to be separate from other employees so as to not further spread any sort of outbreak. We're still kind of working on the details of that policy, and so that will hopefully be ready for council discussion at the next meeting on the 18th. I just wanted you to be aware of that going forward. Alder Kruger, you got a question?
So if we do approve something at a later date, will we be able to kind of retroactively?
Yeah, that's one thing. Yeah, if we have a situation that happens in the next 2 weeks, obviously we'd make that retroactive to any employee that would be impacted. Yep.
Great, thank you.
Alder Moore?
Yeah, I just, a couple of things before, Mayor, before I turned it over. One is I just wanted to echo what Chief Cheney Austin said, which or Jerry said around Public Works. I made a posted on Facebook as well, but I just can't say enough about the street crews and Jeff and the street crews. I mean, our streets are so much better than every other community, and I just really appreciate it as we get into winter. Kudos to Ryan in the library, as already been mentioned. And I also just wanted to say kudos to Administrator Gadow for passing his Wisconsin Certified Emergency Management Program, which was in his report, 374 hours, 37 courses. Woo, rah! Like, what an accomplishment. So, Brian, congratulations.
Thank you very much. It was over like 10 years, so it wasn't.
I know,
last
but
year.
Still, that's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah.
Well, and you stole my thunder for that, Alder Moore.
Oh, sorry.
Brian, it's your night for it, Nancy. That's okay. Congratulations, though, Brian. I know you've spent a lot of time on that, as you do on other trainings. But you're also taking periodically to help improve the job you're doing for the city, and we appreciate it. So, the only other thing I had is that, in case anybody's interested, Christmas tree pickup begins on January 17th, and I think it's just that week, and people should have their trees out that day, because we never know when Barnes is coming through. But if there isn't anything else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second? All in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Hey.
Good night.